I was a college student, barely scraping by. My life revolved around textbooks, part-time jobs, and trying to keep up with everything while dreaming of something bigger. I remember spending nights at the diner, wiping down tables, making small talk with customers, and barely making enough to cover rent. It wasn't glamorous, but I had a clear goal. Finish my degree, land a job in tech, and turn things around. I had ambition, but at the time, ambition didn't pay bills. I wore worn-out clothes and had a cheap second-hand car. There was no luxury, no security, but I had something else, hope. I clung to it because I had nothing else to hold on to. Anna was the complete opposite. She had everything, at least on the surface. Her family was well off, and she had the kind of beauty that made heads turn. Confident, always put together, and driven, Anna didn't just stand out, she commanded attention. She was popular on campus, always surrounded by people, with a sleek phone in her hand and the latest outfits. When we met, it was almost like fate. She saw potential in me, or so I thought. I was drawn to her because she represented everything I aspired to be: successful, confident, effortlessly stylish. She didn't mind my humble beginnings, or so it seemed. But as time passed, I began to feel like I was just part of her experiment, a challenge to make herself feel more relatable while she climbed higher. It happened on a rainy night, the kind of night where everything feels heavier, colder. She stood in the doorway of my small apartment, her bags packed. There was no anger in her eyes, just a strange emptiness. It felt like she had made up her mind long before she walked through that door. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I need someone who can keep up with me. You're sweet, but you're not enough. You're just not the person I need right now." I was stunned. It felt like the ground was falling out from under me. She didn't yell, didn't cry, but the finality in her words cut deep. She was leaving. For someone else, for something better, for a future that didn't involve me. I didn't beg. I didn't ask her to stay. I just stood there, feeling like everything I had worked for in the last few years, the person I thought I was becoming, was all worthless to her now. In the days that followed, I was numb. It felt like someone had ripped a hole in my chest, and every little thing reminded me of her. The apartment felt emptier, the bed colder, and every single morning I woke up to the harsh reality that she wasn't coming back. I started scrolling through her social media, looking at pictures of her and Blake, the guy who had everything. They were on vacations I could never afford, holding hands on beaches while I was stuck, alone. She had moved on, and I was left with nothing but regret. I went into a spiral, not knowing who I was without her. Was I really so unworthy of love? Was my ambition not enough? I'd spent so long working toward the future, and now it felt like the future had no meaning. The woman I thought would be there through it all wasn't even a part of my life anymore. I had nothing. No partner, no vision, just an empty space where our dreams used to be. After the breakup, I didn't know what to do. My world had just fallen apart. But there was one thing I could control: my work. I threw myself into it. I worked late nights, barely slept, and barely ate. But I kept pushing because that was all I had left. I couldn't let her departure be my end. It had to be my beginning. I started developing a small app that I thought could help students manage their time better. Simple, clean, and easy to use. I didn't expect much, but I released it to a few forums on Reddit. The response? Unexpected. It went viral. The app caught the attention of investors, and suddenly I was in meetings I'd never imagined myself in. Within a few months, I had a development team. Soon after, we were getting acquisition offers. The company that once offered me $30 for my code was now willing to pay me millions. I had gone from the guy with nothing to someone they were fighting to work with. I didn't just want to get rich. I wanted to prove that I was worth more than she had given me credit for. I wanted to prove that even though she thought I was nothing, I was capable of everything. I signed the deal, took the offer, and suddenly I was a millionaire. I bought my own house, the car I always dreamed of, and invested in more businesses. Life was changing fast. I started living the life I had once imagined. The dinners in fancy restaurants, traveling to places I only saw in movies, and meeting people who had the same ambitions as me. But no matter how much success I had, something felt missing. I was chasing a dream, but that dream didn't involve her anymore. I realized that money and success didn't fill the hole she had left. I was winning, but I wasn't winning for the right reasons. I wasn't winning for her, I was winning for myself. I still had the taste of bitterness in my mouth, and while my bank account was full, my heart was still empty. It was a random Tuesday afternoon when it happened. I had just come out of a strategy meeting, heading toward my car parked outside a coffee shop downtown. I almost didn't notice her at first. She was sitting on the sidewalk, huddled against the cold, a cardboard sign next to her that read, "Anything helps." It took me a moment, but then I saw her eyes. The same woman who once told me I wasn't enough was now homeless, dirty, and begging for change outside a cafe I now frequented for business calls. I froze. My heart dropped. She looked up at me, and in that moment, time stopped. Her eyes widened in shock. Shame. Recognition. I could see the flood of memories hitting her. But instead of anger, I felt a strange mix of sadness, closure, and power. I walked toward her slowly. She looked away, pretending not to know me. But I crouched down and said her name. She whispered, "I didn't expect to see you like this." I replied softly, "Neither did I." She looked thinner, weaker. Life had clearly been unkind to her. I found out her relationship with Blake ended badly. He drained her finances, cheated, and left her. Her parents cut her off. She'd lost everything, her pride, her circle, even her roof. She asked for help. Not money, just kindness. A meal. A chance. I stood there for a long moment, torn between my pain and my compassion. Part of me wanted to walk away and let karma finish its work. But another part remembered the nights we stayed up dreaming. The girl I once loved, even if that version of her no longer existed. So I took her to the cafe and bought her lunch. We talked. I listened and I told her my story. Not to gloat, but to show her that people do grow. That what she once called not enough had become something no one could ignore anymore. That I didn't offer her money. I didn't offer her a job. I offered her dignity, just for a moment. And sometimes that's more powerful than revenge. I stood there, my mind racing with conflicting thoughts. The man I had become, the success I had worked so hard for, the life I had built, was it worth it? Was it worth the sacrifice, the loneliness, the missed opportunities for happiness? Or had I just created a version of myself she would never understand, one that was so far removed from the person she had left behind? I looked down at her. She was sitting there, weak, vulnerable. A stark contrast to the woman who once looked down at me for not having enough. She wasn't asking for charity. She wasn't begging for a handout, but for something deeper, for human connection, for kindness. She had no one left. Not even the man she had chosen over me. For a moment, I could have walked away. I could have turned my back and let her face the consequences of her choices. I had every right to do so. But deep down, I realized something. She didn't ask for this. The child I had once known was lost in a sea of mistakes, and I couldn't blame her for it. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to remind her of all the hurt she caused me. But in the quiet of that moment, I realized that my anger didn't matter anymore. It wasn't going to change anything. I took a deep breath and sat down across from her. There were no grand speeches, no angry words. I wasn't here to humiliate her. I was here to offer what I could, even if it was only a moment of dignity. "I don't owe you anything," I said softly, "but I'll help you. Not because of what you did, but because no one deserves to be left like this." She looked up at me, tears in her eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw her as human. Not just someone who hurt me, but someone who was capable of pain, regret, and redemption. I didn't offer her money. I didn't offer her my life. What I offered was something simple, a chance to rebuild. I paid for her to stay in a shelter, I arranged for counseling, and I made a few phone calls to help her get back on her feet. But I did it from a place of understanding, not revenge. From a place of seeing someone not as a villain, but as a victim of their own choices. Walking away from that moment wasn't easy. There was a part of me that still wanted to walk away with bitterness, but in the end I realized something. Helping her didn't mean I was weak. It didn't mean I was going back to the old me. It meant I was stronger than I ever thought I could be. I left the cafe, unsure of what would happen next. But I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. The moment everything became clear. I left the cafe that day with a storm brewing inside me. My heart felt heavy, but not in the way I expected. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I realized I had already won. Not just financially. Not just in life. But in peace, in growth, in empathy. This wasn't a moment about revenge. It was about who I had become, and how I wanted to carry myself, even in front of someone who once left me broken. That night, I sat at my desk watching the city lights outside my penthouse window. I could have ignored her completely and gone to bed with zero guilt. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up the phone. I called a local women's shelter I trusted. I arranged a private room for her, clean, safe, warm. I even set her up with a job counselor I knew, someone who worked with people rebuilding their lives. I didn't give her my number. I didn't invite her into my world. But I gave her the one thing she hadn't had in a long time: dignity. Some people think success is driving away in a luxury car while your past suffers in the rearview mirror. But sometimes, true power is being able to look someone in the eyes, even the one who broke you, and offer them kindness, not because they deserve it but because you do. And that's the decision I made. She looked so different from the last time I saw her. Back then she was the one walking away. Strong. Confident. Certain I would never be enough. Now I was the one standing tall, not because of the watch on my wrist or the penthouse keycard in my pocket, but because I had healed. I had grown. She sat quietly across from me in that little cafe, fingers trembling on her chipped coffee cup. When she looked up, her voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" Her eyes were red, tired, full of shame. I paused for a moment. Then I said, "Because once I would have done anything for you. And maybe, some part of me still hopes you get another chance to do things differently." No revenge. No loud exit. She broke down, not out of gratitude but out of regret. The weight of her choices crashing down all at once. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the broken one anymore. We don't always get to rewrite the past. Sometimes the people who break us never say sorry. And sometimes we never get the happy ending we imagined. But healing, real healing, doesn't need applause or revenge. It just needs a choice. A choice to not become like the ones who hurt us. A choice to walk away with peace, instead of pride. A choice to help, not because they deserve it but because we do. And that day I made mine. Maybe the real win isn't success or payback. Maybe it's becoming someone you're proud to be, even when no one's watching. If this story gave you chills, or made you think about what you would have done, speech balloon, tell me in the comments. Would you have helped her? Or would you have walked away for good? Light bulb. And if you believe real stories, the kind that make you feel something, deserve a place online. Bell, subscribe to Echoed Confessions and tap the bell icon so you never miss a moment that matters. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We echo the ones people are too afraid to say out loud.